In the small, misty town of Millbrook, where grey skies often hung low and streets whispered tales of forgotten dreams, lived James Peterson. At 42, he carried the weight of unexpected silence, the silence of unemployment that had crept into his life like an unwelcome guest. James wasn't a man who complained. His weathered hands told stories of 20 years in the factory, where he had worked with a dedication that seemed almost forgotten in today's fast-changing world. Every morning, he would wake up in his modest cottage, make a cup of strong tea, and sit by the window, watching the town slowly come to life. The factory closure had been sudden, no warning, no long goodbye. Just a simple letter that arrived one grey Tuesday morning, explaining that his position was no longer needed. Technology, they said. Progress, they called it. But for James, it felt like a personal rejection. His savings were quickly depleting. The bills didn't care about his situation. Electricity, water, heating, they all demanded payment. Each envelope that arrived felt like another punch to his already bruised spirit. His daughter Elizabeth rarely called, and his wife Margaret had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving a silence in the house that echoed louder than any conversation. Millbrook was a town of about 5,000 people where everyone knew each other. But knowing didn't always mean caring. James could see the pitying looks from neighbors, the whispers at the local grocery store. Poor James, they would say, another victim of the changing times. But James wasn't looking for pity. He was looking for purpose. Every morning he would dress carefully, pressed shirt, clean trousers, polished shoes, as if he were still going. To work. He would walk through the town, checking job boards, speaking with old contacts, sending out applications. His routine was a small rebellion against despair. The local community center became his second home. Here he would sit and use the free computer services, learning new skills. His fingers, once skilled at operating heavy machinery, now awkwardly typed job applications and explored online training courses. Robert Thompson, an old friend from the factory, would sometimes join him. "You're not done yet, James," he would say, placing a comforting hand on James's shoulder. "You've got more fight in you than most young folks these days." On this particular morning, the cafe was quiet. Outside, a light drizzle painted the windows with soft grey streaks. James sat near the window, nursing a cup of tea, watching the town move around him. People rushed, children walked to school, delivery trucks made their rounds. Life continued, with or without him. An elderly woman at the next table noticed his distant gaze. "Hard times?" she asked softly. James managed a weak smile. "Just thinking about my next move," he replied. The truth was, he was scared. Scared of becoming irrelevant, scared of not providing, scared of losing the identity he had built over decades. But somewhere deep inside, a small flame of hope continued to flicker. He thought about his late wife, Margaret. She would have told him to keep going, to find a way. "Life doesn't stop when challenges arrive," she would say. "It starts when you decide to push through them." As the morning progressed, James decided something. He would not be defined by his job loss. He would be defined by how he responded to it. Little did James know that this ordinary morning in Millbrook was about to become the first chapter of an extraordinary journey. The town, with its quiet streets and watching eyes, was about to witness a transformation that would inspire many. His cup of tea grew cold, but his spirit was beginning to warm. Something was about to change. The quiet struggle was about to become a quiet revolution. Would you like me to continue with the next part in a similar style and word count? The community center stood like a beacon of hope in Millbrook, its brick walls holding countless stories of transformation. For James Peterson, it became more than just a building. It was a bridge to his potential future. Computer classes were offered twice a week, and James felt completely out of place among younger participants. His fingers, once precise in factory work, now fumbled awkwardly with keyboards and mouse clicks. The first day he wanted to walk away, embarrassed by his own limitations. Margaret, the instructor, was different from what James expected. Instead of making him feel old or inadequate, she offered patient guidance. "Everyone starts somewhere," she would say with a warm smile that reached her eyes. "Technology is just another skill, like learning to drive or cook." James watched younger participants navigate computers with ease, their fingers dancing across keyboards. He felt like an outsider, a relic from a different era. But Margaret saw something in him, determination that couldn't be measured by age or previous experience. During one class, while struggling with an email attachment, James almost gave up. His hands trembled slightly, revealing his inner frustration. Margaret approached quietly, demonstrating the process step by step, breaking down complex instructions into simple, manageable actions. "You're doing better than you think," she would reassure him. "Each small step is progress." The other students began to notice James's persistence. Some offered help, others shared tips. What started as a technical skills class slowly transformed into a supportive community. James discovered that learning wasn't just about computers, it was about connection. His daughter Elizabeth heard about his classes and called, surprised. "Dad, are you learning computers?" Her voice carried a mixture of disbelief and unexpected pride. For the first time in months, James felt his daughter's genuine interest. Robert, his old factory friend, continued supporting him. "How you're braver than most," he would say, bringing James homemade sandwiches during class breaks. "Most people your age would have given up." Each week, James's confidence grew. Emails that once seemed complicated became routine. Spreadsheets transformed from mysterious grids to manageable tools. He started helping other older participants, sharing his newfound knowledge with the same patience Margaret had shown him. The community center became more than a learning space. It became a symbol of hope. Here, age was just a number, and potential had no expiration date. James was rewriting his own narrative, one computer lesson at a time. One afternoon, while practicing a particularly challenging spreadsheet formula, James realized something profound. Learning wasn't about being perfect, it was about being persistent. Each mistake was an opportunity, not a failure. His world was expanding. The same hands that once operated heavy machinery were now creating digital documents, sending emails, and connecting with a world he had previously thought was beyond his reach. The town of Millbrook watched quietly, an unemployed factory worker transforming himself, challenging the narrative of what was possible after 40. James wasn't just learning computer skills, he was rebuilding his identity, one click at a time. As weeks passed, something magical happened. The awkward, hesitant man who first walked into the community center was slowly disappearing. In his place stood a confident learner, ready to embrace new challenges. Margaret noticed the change most prominently. "You're not just learning computers," she told him one afternoon. "You're learning about yourself." James smiled, understanding that this journey was about much more than technical skills. It was about rediscovering purpose, about proving to himself that potential has no age limit. The small seeds of change had been planted, and they were beginning to grow. Would you like me to continue with the next part in a similar style and word count? The community kitchen was nothing fancy, a simple room with worn wooden tables, industrial-sized pots, and an atmosphere of warmth that seemed to transcend its basic setup. James discovered this place almost by accident, searching for another way to rebuild his life and purpose. Emma Walker stood at the center of the kitchen, a whirlwind of energy despite her exhaustion. A single mother of 2 children, she worked 3 different jobs just to keep her family afloat. Her hands moved quickly, chopping vegetables and stirring massive pots of soup with a precision born of necessity. When James first volunteered, he felt awkward and out of place. His factory-trained hands, once precise with machinery, now struggled to chop vegetables evenly. Emma noticed his hesitation and approached with a kind smile. "Everyone starts somewhere," she said, echoing the words of his computer instructor. The kitchen became more than just a place of food preparation. It was a sanctuary of human connection. People from all walks of life came through, unemployed workers, struggling families, elderly individuals living alone. Each person carried a story. Each meal represented more than just nutrition. James learned quickly that cooking was another form of communication. A perfectly chopped carrot, a carefully seasoned soup. These were languages of care and compassion. His precise factory skills translated surprisingly well to kitchen work. Measurements, timing, attention to detail, these were skills he understood. Deeply, Emma's story slowly unfolded during their shared shifts. She had lost her husband 3 years earlier in a construction accident, leaving her alone with 2 young children. Her resilience was quiet but powerful. She never complained, never asked for sympathy, simply moved forward with determination that humbled James. The other volunteers began to notice something special happening. James, once a quiet, reserved man, started sharing stories from his factory. Days. Emma would listen, asking questions, finding connections between their seemingly different worlds. They became an unexpected team, supporting each other through shared challenges. Some days were harder than others. When James felt discouraged about his job search, Emma would remind him of his worth. "You're more than just a job title," she would say, stirring a massive pot of vegetable stew. When Emma struggled with her children's school expenses, James would offer practical advice and sometimes a little financial support. The community kitchen transformed. It was no longer just a place to feed people. It became a place of healing, of connection, of hope. People started talking about the remarkable duo who seemed to bring extra warmth to every meal served. Local businesses began taking notice. AIC's small catering company offered James part-time work, impressed by his newfound culinary skills and professional attitude. Emma's dedication caught the attention of a local school looking for a reliable kitchen assistant. Their friendship became a testament to human resilience. 2 people from different backgrounds, facing similar challenges, finding strength in unexpected connection. James realized that his journey wasn't just about finding a new job, it was about rediscovering his capacity to care, to contribute, to connect. The town of Millbrook watched quietly. An unemployed factory worker and a struggling single mother were rewriting their own stories, one meal at a time. Their unexpected connection became a symbol of hope, a reminder that community could be built in the most ordinary of places. As winter approached, the community kitchen became a beacon of warmth. Hot meals, shared stories, quiet support, these were the true currencies of human connection. James and Emma had discovered something profound, that purpose isn't found in job titles, but in how we choose to support one another. Their story was just beginning, but already it was changing the fabric of their small town, one carefully prepared, meal at a time. Would you like me to continue with the next part in a similar style and word count? The small tech startup occupied a converted warehouse at the edge of Millbrook, its glass windows reflecting the town's changing landscape. Technova, as the company was called, represented something new, a space where innovation met human potential. Michael? Roberts, the young CEO, wasn't looking for traditional employees. He wanted people with real-life experience, individuals who understood problem-solving beyond textbook theories. When James's application arrived, something caught Michael's attention, not just skills, but the story behind those skills. James arrived for the interview wearing his best-pressed shirt, hands slightly trembling. He remembered Margaret's computer, class lessons, the supportive environment that had rebuilt his confidence. The office felt different from his old factory, open spaces, young employees, computers everywhere. "We're not interested in perfect resumes," Michael said, looking directly at James. "We're interested in people who can solve real problems." His approach was unconventional. Instead of a traditional interview, he presented James with a practical challenge, a complex administrative problem that required both digital skills and human intuition. James worked methodically. His factory-trained precision merged with his recently acquired computer skills. Where younger applicants might rush, he carefully analyzed each step. Hours passed, and Michael watched, increasingly impressed by James's approach. The startup needed someone who could bridge generations, someone who understood both traditional work ethics and emerging technologies. James represented exactly that, a living bridge between old and new working methods. When the offer came, it wasn't just a job. It was a validation of James's entire journey. Part-time initially, but with potential for growth. His salary wasn't massive, but it represented something far more significant. A second chance, a renewed purpose. News traveled quickly in Millbrook. At the community kitchen, Emma celebrated with him. "You did it," she said, her eyes reflecting genuine pride. His daughter Elizabeth called, her voice carrying a tone of newfound respect. The local newspaper picked up his story. "Millbrook man proves age is just a number," the headline read. Suddenly, James wasn't just an unemployed factory worker. He was a symbol of resilience, of hope. But the journey wasn't just about James. His success inspired others in town. Older workers who had given up started looking at technology differently. The community center's computer classes saw increased enrollment. People realized that learning had no age limit. Michael saw something special in James's approach. "You bring something unique," he told James during their second week. "Experience that can't be taught in any classroom." James understood that his value wasn't just in technical skills, but in his life experiences. The startup became more than a workplace. It became a community of diverse talents, where age, background, and previous experiences were seen as strengths, not limitations. James became a mentor to younger employees, sharing insights from his factory days, showing how problem-solving transcends technological changes. His relationship with his daughter began healing. Elizabeth started seeing her father not as someone struggling, but as someone continuously growing. Weekend dinners became conversations about technology, about life's unexpected journeys. The community kitchen remained James's anchor. Even with his new job, he continued volunteering, understanding that success wasn't about personal achievement, but about lifting others alongside you. Millbrook watched this transformation. A town that had almost written off its older workers now celebrated individual potential. James represented something powerful, the idea that human potential is not defined by age, but by attitude and willingness to learn. As winter turned to spring, James reflected on his journey. From a quiet, uncertain man sitting in a cafe to someone who had rebuilt his entire life, he had discovered something profound. Every ending could be a new beginning. His story was more than personal success. It was a reminder that resilience, learning, and human connection could break any barrier. Would you like me to continue with the final part in a similar style and word count? The community center buzzed with energy. On Saturday mornings, rows of chairs filled with eager learners, all seeking hope, all wanting to rewrite their stories. And at the front of the room stood James Peterson, no longer the uncertain man from 2 years ago, but a beacon of inspiration. His mentorship program had become Millbrook's most unexpected success. Older workers, young job seekers, individuals, feeling lost, they all found their way to James's workshops. He didn't just teach technical skills, he taught resilience, hope, and the art of continuous learning. Emma Walker helped organize these sessions, her own journey intertwined with James's story. She managed the registration, prepared refreshments, and watched as lives transformed week after week. Her 2 children would often help, learning valuable lessons about community and support. Each workshop told a different story. There was Robert, a former truck driver learning digital mapping skills; Martha, a retired nurse exploring healthcare technology; young graduates struggling to find their first job; and veterans seeking new professional directions. James shared more than just computer skills. He shared life lessons learned through his own struggles. Technology changes, he would say, but human spirit remains constant. His stories weren't lectures. They were conversations filled with humor, wisdom, and genuine understanding. Technova, the startup that first hired him, became a supporter of his community programs. Michael Roberts saw the broader impact. These weren't just training sessions, but a model of community revival. The company began sponsoring equipment, providing resources for the workshops. His daughter Elizabeth, once distant, now helped design promotional materials for the program. Their relationship had healed, rebuilt through mutual respect and understanding. She saw her father not as someone struggling, but as a community leader. The local government took notice. What started as a small community initiative became a model for supporting mid-career professionals. Other towns began asking James to share his approach, his method of transforming unemployment into opportunity. Winter mornings were cold, but the community center felt warm. Computers hummed, people laughed, connections formed. James watched these interactions, remembering his own journey. Each person represented a potential story of transformation. Emma's children started attending junior technology workshops. They would sit near their mother watching James teach, understanding that learning was a lifelong journey. The next generation was absorbing lessons of resilience and hope. Local businesses started recognizing the program's value. Hiring managers noticed the caliber of participants, individuals who brought life experience, determination, and newly acquired skills. James had created more than a training program. He had created a pathway to renewed purpose. Financial stability returned to James's life, but he knew his richness came from something beyond money. It came from connection, from the ability to lift others, from understanding that every person carried untapped potential. The community kitchen remained his anchor. Even with his new responsibilities, he continued volunteering, cooking meals, supporting those still struggling. Success, he believed, wasn't about personal achievement, but about collective growth. As sunset painted Millbrook's sky, James would often sit by his cottage window, reflecting on his journey, from uncertainty to purpose, from isolation to community, leadership. His story was a testament to human resilience. Margaret, his late wife, seemed to smile from old photographs. The quiet determination she always saw in him had finally found its true expression. He had become the person she always believed he could be. Millbrook had changed, not through grand gestures, but through individual stories of hope. And at the center of these stories stood James Peterson, a man who had transformed his own life and, in doing so, had transformed an entire community. His journey proved a simple, powerful truth. It's never too late to begin, to learn, to grow. Hope doesn't have an expiration date. Would you like me to compile this into a complete story document?